UFC Fight Night 184, aka UFC Vegas 18. We have Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov. Welcome to Boxing MMA Picks. We're here with another UFC prediction video. We have Harris, myself, is joined with Zan, of course, as usual, giving you our UFC picks, telling you which fights to avoid, which fights are worth the money, and which ones do we feel pretty confident about. In this card, we have 7 fights on our prelims. As usual, we do the prelim video first. So let's get right into fight number 1. We have Osbourne versus Dennis Bondar. Let me break these two fighters down really quickly here. When looking at Osbourne, I mean, what do I see from him? He won the contract on the Dana White Contender Series despite losing his UFC debut to Brian Kelleher. I like his reach. I think he's pretty quick. I think he's pretty explosive. He's a southpaw. Shows pretty good boxing, shows pretty good kickboxing as well. One thing I really like about him is his accuracy. He doesn't really wind up on his punches, kind of, throws those straight shots, accurate shots, effective shots as well. And I like his combinations, usually 2 to 3 punches at a time. I feel like he mixes in the kicks as well at a pretty decent pace. Now, one thing I noticed about his game, it's going to sound interesting, is that I wasn't overly impressed with his ground game or his clinch work, although he has a wrestling background. He wrestled in college. So, I mean, that's important to mention to say he has the knowledge. But in his fight versus Brian Kelleher, I mean, Kelleher was able to control him pretty easily on the ground. And, like I said, he has some knowledge, though, right? So he does have the ability to work off of his back. He does have a number of submissions. If we take a look at his wins, 4 of them are by submission. So he definitely has the ability to land that. So he is pretty knowledgeable on the ground. But like I said, I wasn't overly impressed with it. When I look at Dennis Bondar, by comparison, now it is his UFC debut. But when I take a look at his stand-up just in general, I see someone who has pretty comfortable looking in his stand-up, pretty quick in his stand-up. I like his feints. I like his movement. I like his striking defense a lot. That was one of the first things that I noticed from him. I'm not comparing him to Lomachenko, but I will say it's a Lomachenko style at times. I really like how he mixes it up. He may even have the overall striking advantage, even though I think Osbourne is probably the more explosive striker. Seems to be pretty knowledgeable on the ground as well. I've seen him defend against submissions. I've seen him improve his position on the ground, whether on top or on bottom. I've seen him, keep his opponent on the ground as well. I like Bondar for a lot of reasons in this fight. I think he's the more complete fighter. I think he may even have the advantage on the feet. I just think he's better all around, and he's going to be my pick for this fight.
Okay, yeah, we got a good fight here. We got a really good fight, Osbourne. Versus the newcomers. First fight in the UFC, Dennis Bondar fighting out of the Ukraine. Osbourne, to me, Odie is a dangerous striker to me. He fights really long. He has pop. He has the power. My concern with Osbourne is, for one, I think he has a good path. He could win this fight. I think he's the better striker here, and he does have power. But my problem with him is his takedown defense isn't that good, and Bondar has good takedowns, so I can see him utilizing that, getting some takedowns, tiring Odie out, and he goes for finishes. So I like Bondar in this spot. I know it's his first fight in the UFC, but he's really well-rounded. I think he's fought the better competition aside from Odie fighting Kelleher. Aside from Kelleher, there's not really much on Osbourne's record. So yeah, I'm going to go with Bondar. I'm going to go with the newcomer. His grappling, he does have some striking to keep it competitive on the feet, but I think the ground game is where it's at. So I'm going to go with Bondar here to win this fight.
Sounds good. Let's move on to fight number 2. We have Devonte Smith versus Alex de Silva. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I think this is a really, really close fight. I think this is a 50-50 fight because with Alex de Silva, he's 21-3. But that's one of those boxing records, because when you really look at who he's fought 3 fights in the UFC. Yakovlev, he lost. He beat Rodrigo Vargas, and he lost to Brad Riddell. aside from those guys, he hasn't fought anybody. The guys that are on his record, like the 18 or some odd wins he has, 20 wins, are against a lot of cans. So he's good. He's well rounded. He's a good fighter. He can get this fight to the ground. He has a really good path. But I'm not. This is a tough one because to me, Devonte Smith has a big striking edge, fast, accurate striker. But to me, he could give up takedowns here against John Gunther, who he was hurting. He was beating him down, and then Gunther took. The fight could have been stopped if it was a different referee. It was that bad of a beatdown. Gunther survived and just kept taking him down and eventually finished him in the third round. So there's that concern that the Silva could get success that way. But I'm going to bank on Devonte Smith keeping this fight standing enough. He only really needs one round. But again, this is a close fight. It's 50-50. I'm going to go with Devonte Smith winning this fight here.
Yeah, I think you explained it perfectly, so I'm not going to double down on the explanation, but that was the same conclusion that I came up with, was that Alex De Silva has a real path here. He can use the takedown game. We've seen him use the takedown game, but Devonte Smith does have that advantage in the stand-up, and I've seen Alex De Silva fizzle out in fights, right? So I can't really trust anyone that I've seen fizzle out in fights. So unless Smith's ground game, not only to say is awful, but if he allows the fight to go to the ground, then he's in a real problem here. But if he can keep this on the feet, because I do think this fight will end on the feet, I do think Devonte Smith has a real shot here. So again, very close fight, 50-50 fight. Would not be surprised if either fighter won this one. But to your point, sort of a gut check, gonna go with Devonte Smith on this fight as well. So let's move on to fight number 3. We have Karol Rosa versus Joselyn Edwards. Now, this one's interesting because we just saw Joselyn Edwards perform 3 weeks ago. As you see there, one of the key takeaways of this fight, just 21 days after her debut, we're seeing her fight again, right? So just to break down these fighters a little bit, when I take a look at Edwards, pretty solid in her UFC debut. That was versus Yanan Wu, just for the record. She looked pretty patient in her stand-up. She definitely has that pop behind her punches. Showed a decent guard as well, not taking too much damage, showing some grappling, some jiu-jitsu off the ground as well. And, in takedown situations, she showed that ability to reverse if needed. Not to say it's amazing, but she did show that knowledge and that ability to do so. And when she gets on top, her ground and pound is pretty active. In general, she's a pretty lengthy striker. She has power in both of her punches and her kicks. Throws quite a bit into those punches. A lot of hooks in her combinations as well. So that's going to be a very key factor, especially against somebody like Rosa, who doesn't really move her head much. But that said, when it comes to Karol Rosa, I do like her stand-up. It's more of a in-the-pocket Muay Thai type of stand-up, very effective use of the calf kick as well. She can strike first. She can also counter-strike. So I think that's going to be an important factor. Can she find the timing versus Joselyn Edwards to get out of the way of her punch and then throw a counter punch on the opposite end, followed by a calf kick as an example? I've seen her shoot for the double leg in the past, and I've seen her land it pretty effectively. I've seen her get into clinch positions against the cage and sort of trip her opponent. And I've seen her, sort of, not to say make the fight ugly, but make the fight a bit physical outside of just striking. I do think that'll be the factor in this fight. I do think that, Karol Rosa is probably the more solid of the two fighters. I like her ability to time. I like her ability to counterpunch. And I think she's going to have that added layer of the takedown advantage, at least in my opinion, where I see her as the winner of this fight. But that said, pretty close fight because Karol Rosa does also sort of allow herself to get hit. So it is going to be the question of, does Joselyn Edwards maybe just plow right through her? But I just don't quite see that happening.
One thing I will say, I can see this fight starting out with Joselyn Edwards looking good out the gate. I think she comes out pretty quick. She's pretty active, very long, athletic. But I like Carolina's steady approach to fighting. She keeps a steady pace for 3 rounds, and she's not going to falter that pace. While Edwards, she had a good showing, just like Harris said. But I think this is a step up in competition here, from fighting Yanan Wu. Now you're fighting Karol Rosa, a girl that could use her size. She could be just a stronger person in the ring. In the cage, and she could just outmuscle her as well. So that's another path for her. She can just outmuscle her, just be the stronger person. Or I can also see her just wearing her down as the fight goes on. She could lose the first round, but I see as the second, third goes on with her steady pace, I can see her approach her fighting style winning this fight. Low kicks, jabs, hooks. Yeah, I like her style, and she's more technical than Edwards here. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Karol Rosa here, just being a bit too much, a bit high of a lead from her last fight.
Yeah, and if you notice with her as well, of her 13 wins, 7 of them have come by decision. So to your point, real path to victory for Karol Rosa to sort of just outmuscle her, clinch her, make it dirty, tire her out, and look to win rounds 2 and 3. I can definitely see something like that happening. Let's move on in that case to fight number 4. We have Mike Rodriguez versus Danilo Marques. Actually, you know what? Let me hear your thoughts on this fight.
This, to me, is could be a trap fight, because I know they're going to have Rodriguez as a favorite here. He could be a decent favorite in this spot. I could see Vegas doing that. But Mike Davis's kryptonite is grapplers, people that have that wrestling approach, because he does give up takedowns, and he has shown that as the fight goes on, the takedowns wear him out. So he does gas when he's fighting these grapplers. So there's that concern. Now we know when it comes to the striking, he is the better striker. He's very comfortable there. He has knockout power, kicks, Muay Thai. He has a Muay Thai clinch, knees in the body, in the head. So he's a well diverse striker. Has a lot of attacks. But when he fought Devin Clark just utilized the takedowns. Another fight, Ed Herman was able to utilize some groundwork. He should have won that fight, but obviously a little controversy there. But then Ed Herman got the submission later on in the fight. But Ed Herman was able to get some success that way as well. So this fight could be a trap. Whereas Mike Rodriguez is going to be the better striker. He's going to look better. He should win in the spot. Danilo Marques, he has takedowns. He's not the best wrestler, but he has tricky takedowns. He'll pull the single leg. He'll grab the body and drag you down. And when he's on top, he has pretty good control. So this is a tough fight. Danilo Marques, when he's striking, he does not look comfortable. Like, he definitely doesn't enjoy the striking range. I'm going to go with Mike Rodriguez in a fight that I think is a lot closer than the odds are going to say. But I think that Danilo Marques is the kryptonite to beat Michael Rodriguez. If you want to go with the underdog, I think Danilo could be live here. I'm not saying he is, but his style could give Mike's problem. But Mike has lost his last fight. He's mad from his last fight. He lost to Ed Herman controversially in a controversial fight. So he's going to be pissed off here. I think he's going to win this fight, keep it standing enough, and get a knockout, because I think he has a far better striking edge. But be careful. I wouldn't have this on every parlay, because I think it could be a trap, but I think he's the far better fighter here. And yeah, I think he should be able to get a knockout in this one.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm glad you mentioned this potentially being a trap fight, because to me, this is a fight that you want to stay away from, to that point of being a trap. You might think to add it to a parlay. You might think to even bet it straight up. I think the odds weren't too much in favor, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember at the moment. But when it comes to Marques and his ability to take down, that's definitely a path for him. What I did notice with Marques, though, is that he doesn't really have an overwhelming takedown game. So it's going to be interesting to see, can Mike Rodriguez avoid that enough? We've seen him stuff takedowns. We've seen him sprawl, of course, but to fighters that have that more overwhelming style, that Devin Clark, again, we've seen Ed Herman do it at times in that fight, but, with controversy in it. But unless you have that sort of, for lack of better word, smothering style, I do think Mike Rodriguez should, I should say, be able to stop you and be able to keep this fight on the feet. Like you said, could be a trap fight, but also I'm making a hesitant pick for Mike Rodriguez in this fight as well. So that's going to be interesting. Like you said, possibly avoid this. This is possibly a trap, but I think we are both going for Mike Rodriguez on this one. So let's move on to fight number 5. Now, fight number 5 has had a bit of a change to it, as we see here. It is not Seung Choi versus Colin Anglin. It is Seung Choi versus Youssef Zalal. So let's actually switch over here. Zalal was filled in as a short notice opponent for Choi. Let me break these fighters down a bit. So let's talk about Choi first. I mean, very tall for the division. He's 6 feet. Has that sort of stalking, pressuring type of stand-up. I think he has some decent footwork as well to get in and out of get it in and out of range. I feel he mixes it up well as well. Uses the jab to set up. He's definitely going to make use of that high kick a lot as well. To a Thai fighter, Korean Muay Thai champion. So that's pretty self-explanatory with his ability to clinch and throw knees in the clinch and have an aggressive clinch. And, pretty good takedown defense. Of course, Gavin Tucker was able to beat him with a smothering wrestling style, and Evloev showed that sort of smothering style as well. But for the most part, he does have some pretty solid takedown defense. That said, again, that smothering style is definitely a path to victory for him. Now, when we think about Youssef Zalal, of course, we know him at this point. He moves around the ring a lot. Busy stand-up, good combos, high striking IQ. Definitely has some takedown defense, has the ability to reverse position on the cage. But we saw what Ilia Topuria did to him, for example, of course, with a dominating ground style of his own. That said, I'll just kind of get right into the conclusion of this fight. I do think this fight stays on the feet. I think even though it's a short notice fight for Youssef Zalal, we know that he's always going to be ready. He's always going to be ready to sort of implement his game plan. And I mean, like I said, I think it stays on the feet. It's going to be really, really, really close. And I think the way that it's going to happen is as follows. I think Youssef Zalal will win round 1. And I think Seung Choi will win round 3. The cardio is a factor in this fight, potentially. I mean, Choi, we know, can keep going. Youssef Zalal, we've seen him gas out a bit or slow down a bit or not look as good in the third as he does in the first. So to that point, what's going to be really key in this fight, in my opinion, is who wins round 2. I think whoever wins round 2 wins the fight. I hesitate to pick either fighter because this is actually a pretty skilled fight that I'm just looking forward to as a fan. But if I were to make a pick, I mean, you put a gun to my head, I'm going to have to go with Youssef Zalal. I don't think he slows down significantly. So I do think that he's going to carry enough of that movement into round 2 to be able to win that round as well. And then again, look for Choi to win round 3. But at that point, you're looking at 29-28 in favor of Youssef Zalal. So close one, but I'm going to slightly lean in favor of Youssef Zalal.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that here, but this is a hard fight. That's Seung Choi, high level striker. The 2 times he stepped up in competition against Evloev and Gavin Tucker, he got beaten both fights. He got dominated by Evloev, and then Gavin Tucker submitted him in the 3rd round. He had a win versus Suman Mokhtarian, but this guy is horrible. This is a terrible fighter. Don't let his record fool you. I know his record right now is 8-2, but don't let that fool you. He has no good wins on his record. He has fighters 0-3, 5-2, 0-0, 0-0 on his record. So that Mokhtarian win, he was fighting a scrub. So I like Youssef. I think he's beaten the better fighters. He has some wins. He's beaten Jordan Griffin. Austin Lingo's all right. He beat Peter Barrett. So he's been in there with guys that are thrown back that have victories as well. And I think it's going to come down to Youssef's wrestling. I think if this fight stays standing for long periods, Choi is game. I think Choi is the better striker. But I think Zalal's going to mix it up like he did against Austin Lingo. He's going to strike a bit, take him down. He couldn't do that against Topuria because Topuria had the better wrestling. But in this fight, he has a sizable grappling advantage, a sizable one. So I think he's going to utilize that grappling advantage, and he's going to win this fight by decision. He's a decision guy, so I think he's going to get this one by decision.
I like it, and yeah, I mean, great point in adding that wrestling commentary as well, because that definitely creates a path for him and makes him more likely to sort of win that close round, right? So something to look out for in that fight for sure. In that case, let's switch back over here. Let's go to fight number 6. We have Molly McCann versus Lara Procópio. Where do I go with this fight? Where do I start with this fight? This is a fight I don't want to bet on. I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to throw it to you.
Okay, I'll be honest. I'm not that impressed with Lara Procópio. I'll be honest. I know she likes to stand there. She has some jiu-jitsu, but I'm not impressed. Nah, I think that Molly's is the better striker here. I think Molly's the better grappler here. I give the submissions to Procópio if it gets there, but I think Molly's gonna be the physically stronger girl in there, and I think she's gonna be able to muscle Procópio, avoid the danger, and utilize some takedowns to win a decision, unanimous decision. I like Molly McCann in this spot.
Now, what's interesting to note is that I believe this fight is at 125, if I'm not mistaken, or 135. Take a look here. 1 second. Yeah, this fight is at 125. What's interesting is that Procópio's last fight was at 135, and that was versus Karol Rosa. And in that fight versus Karol Rosa, although her stand-up did not look the cleanest, there was moments. She had moments in there. She had moments where she was catching Karol Rosa, and I don't love Molly McCann's stand-up at all, personally. All right, so I'm gonna say, watch out for that. I'm not as confident in Molly McCann in that fight, and in fact, I guess I'm so unimpressed with Molly McCann that I am gonna go with Procópio on this fight. I don't think Molly McCann uses her ground game enough. I think she should be using it more. I think she's almost fallen in love with how she has improved in the stand-up. And I think if Lara Procópio can sort of box the way she did against Karol Rosa, I don't think Molly McCann can handle that. I'm not impressed with either fighter. In my eyes, this is an avoid at all costs. But if I'm going to go out on a limb, I'm going to say don't be surprised if Lara Procópio comes out and wins this fight and just wins sort of 2 rounds in the stand-up before McCann realizes that she should take a round on the ground. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb there. I'm not confident in either fighter. Definitely stay away in my eyes, but I see we're gonna agree to disagree there on that one. So let's move on in that case. Let's move on to fight number 7, our final fight of the prelims. We have Clay Guida versus Michael the Menace Johnson. Man, I mean, we know both fighters at this point. We know Michael Johnson. We know he's an excellent boxer still to this day. We know he has excellent stand-up. We know he has quick hands, his southpaw, good movement, good striking defense. For the life of him, he can't stop a takedown, though, right? For the life of him, he can't avoid a submission attempt. He can't avoid the grappling situations. We've seen him work on his wrestling. We've seen him do some aggressive sprawls in the ring trying to stop takedowns. But I mean, and he's done it successfully. He's stuffed a few takedowns in his last fight versus Thiago Moises. But I mean, we also know Guida, right? He's toughness, he's relentless wrestling, he's continuous wrestling. What I will say in this fight, again, another fight I hesitate to make a pick on, because when we have fighters that have the records that these two gentlemen do, Michael Johnson at 19-16, and Clay Guida at, if I'm not mistaken, 32-20. Sorry, 35-20. I mean, that alone tells you that anything can happen, right? Literally anything can happen. We know what Guida's going for. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to go for the takedown. We know what Michael Johnson's doing. He's going to piece him up on the feet. This fight is simply going to be a question of, does Johnson knock out Guida before Guida lands a takedown? And I have to say that answer is no. I think Guida has maybe too much heart, too much toughness, even for his own good in some ways, to a point where I don't think Michael Johnson puts him to sleep. And then I think Guida finds a way to get inside, get him against the cage, take him down, win the round, and do that at least for 2 rounds, if not get some kind of finish on the ground.
Yeah, that's definitely a path for Guida. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all, because Guida, he gets takedowns. He gets them, but he's not holding guys down lately. He's not able to keep them down. That's why he's on a slide here right now. He's kind of going down. I know Michael Johnson is not doing the best, but when he lost his fight, Michael Johnson, against Thiago Moises, he landed 27 strikes to 1, and then stopped the takedowns. He slipped. It wasn't even counted as a takedown. So he slipped. Moises got on top, and then Moises submitted him. So Moises has 1 strike in that fight, 1 submission, and he has the win. And Michael Johnson landed 27 strikes. So, but that's still a loss on his record. And then he lost to Stevie Ray. He lost to Josh Emmett, a fight he was winning, and then he got knocked out in the 3rd round. He beat Artem Levin, and he beat Andre Fili. So, arguably, Josh Emmett fight, he had that fight in the bag with like a minute to go. Thiago Moises' fight was a slip, and then all of a sudden, he's stopping the takedowns, and all of a sudden he's on the ground and he gets submitted. So, Stevie Ray fight, and then that was a majority decision win for Stevie Ray. It wasn't even unanimous, even though Stevie Ray definitely won that fight. The point I'm getting at is he's competing. He's competing against these guys. Another one, he was beating up Darren Elkins, 45 strikes to 18. Darren Elkins got 1 takedown, 1 submission, won the fight. He was fighting Justin Gaethje, landed 91 strikes to 104 for Gaethje, but at one point, Johnson had Gaethje hurt and wobbed him, but Gaethje went into zombie mode, and then he hurt him. That was a back and forth fight. I bet on Gaethje, but I was nervous watching that fight. And then we saw the Khabib fight, but considering how everyone else did against Khabib, he didn't do that bad, right? So what I'm trying to get at is he has more left in the tank than Clay Guida, who lost to Bobby Green, Jim Miller. He beat BJ Penn. Okay, so that's his win. So I like him. I like my boy here to win this fight here, Michael Johnson. He has a 79% takedown defense. I think he's going to do enough. Even if he gets down, I think he's going to get back up. My concern is the gas. So I need Johnson to win the first 2 rounds. I think he can do it, because I can see Guida coming out strong in that 3rd round. So I'm going to go with Michael Johnson here by decision.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being a path as well. It's just Michael Johnson's just, to me, a frustrating fighter to bet on, because to your point, in that Moises fight, you're winning it, and then a quick little slip and boom, it's over. The Emmett fight, you're winning it, and a quick little slip and boom, it's over. So, I mean, yeah, I do like Michael Johnson, except to the point of frustration. And I see that potentially being an opportunity for Clay Guida to win. Okay, so I mean that's it. That's it for the prelims. Let's kind of go through some of our picks here in terms of maybe tell me your most confident pick. Your most confident pick of the prelim fights. Who are you feeling?
Let me take a quick look on the picks here. 1 sec. Do you have someone ready, or because I'm not ready?
I would say probably my most confident pick would be Dennis Bondar. I think I like his path to victory. I think his stand-up, maybe not better, but I think his movement in the stand-up is better, and that's going to play a factor. And I think he has too much of a ground advantage.
Okay, that's good. I like Youssef Zalal, and I like Michael Johnson's gonna do it. I like Michael Johnson.
Okay, I like that. I'm not mad at that.
Probably gonna knock out Guida, man. Guida's done, man. That guy has nothing left, man.
I'm not mad at that at all. Should we give them a parlay as well, or an underdog?
Now that's my parlay I'm giving.
Okay, if I were to make a parlay,
The main event video where we'll put the full card parlay there.
definitely. I think for a prelim parlay, I do like Dennis Bondar and Dennis Bondar and you know what? Karol Rosa. I think again she's just more solid. She's more consistent. She's more predictable. And I think that's going to be the difference. I think that's going to be the difference as this fight goes on beyond round one. So I'm going Bondar and Rosa on that one. And you're going...
Throw in Molly McCann for me because I'm showing you that she's going to win that fight.
All right. So you're going with Youssef Zalal. Don't mind the Colin Anglin picture in the video. Molly McCann and Michael Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay. We're pretty much covering all the bases here. I'm not mad at that at all. Let's leave it at that, though. Let's leave it at that. UFC Fight Night 184, a.k.a. UFC Vegas 18. Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov. As usual, boxing MMA picks. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do all of those things, that we will definitely appreciate that. And let us know, who are your picks? Who's your most confident pick on the prelim card? Who is your underdog pick on the prelim card? What's your parlay? Any advice that you want from us as well, mention that in the comments too, and we will be more than happy to kind of give you a little bit more analysis if needed. But as usual, boxing MMA picks. I go by the name of Harris. I have Zan with me. Let's go make this money.
Let's get it.